What's up, YouTube? It's your boy, Brainy Boy. Don't judge me for the name. Back with a video that's sort of different from any other video. I know my channel is mostly dedicated to cars, so I decided, why not today make a video on my family's car history, or the car, well, yeah, self-explanatory. The history of my family's vehicles. Because you all only know of back to my parents in their Sienna and all the way up to now. But we had a good amount. When I say a good amount, I don't mean a lot, but a decent amount of cars before that. So, let's get started. All the way back in 1990, my parents, before I was even born, this is back when my parents started dating, my mother bought her first car, which was a 19 something. It was either like a late 80s or way early 90s. Of course, early 90s, but it was a Chevy Corsica. And that was the first car my parents had as a couple. My parents bought it. At the time, my dad's car got stolen. It was a Buick that he inherited from his father, who passed away. My grandfather, he inherited it, and it got stolen. So at that time, he didn't have a car. So that was the first car my parents had as a couple. My mom bought it, then my parents started dating. And they drove that car for about, I want to say, 3 or 4 years. And then in 93, yeah, about 3 years. In 93, my parents bought a Geo Prizm. I want to say it was in 1993. It was 93 or 94, but it was a Geo Prizm. This is still before I was born. Brand new. It was my mom and dad and my two sisters at the time were the only ones on this earth. I still wasn't born at that time. It was a green Geo Prizm, and they bought it brand new in 93. I want to say that was the year. Moving on, in 1995, I was born. So, they still had the Prizm at the time. But take a man, my father, who was 6'1.5", his wife and 3 kids, and fit them into a Geo Prizm. Not that comfortable, because it's not a big car. So, once I was born, my parents said, we have to get a new car, because this one is too small. So at the time, my uncle, who was working at a Chrysler, Dodge, and Isuzu at the time. Isuzu was still around. I think that's how you pronounce it. That car company was still around. So he was working at one of those dealerships. At the time, it was called Phillips. Now it's called Mancarey's. I want to say that's the name of it now. If you live in the Illinois area, you'll most likely know that dealership. Mancarey's, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep. But at the time, it was just Dodge, Chrysler, and Isuzu. Yeah, I want to say that's how you pronounce it. Anyway, so they bought I can't say brand new. We were the first non-Chrysler employee owners of it. But we weren't the first to own it. How can I put it? It was a corporate car before we bought it. It was a 1995 Dodge Intrepid. Top of the line. Leather, everything that you could get. And my uncle, he was working at the dealership, so he sold it to us. But like I said, we were the first non-employee Chrysler owners of the car. Before that, somebody who worked for the corporate part of Chrysler drove the car. And I don't know how many miles I had on it, because I was only 2 years old. I was only about 1 or 2 when we got the car. I was only 1. I was 1. So after that, about in 98, the car, now keep in mind the car was only 3 years old. The engine went out. Yes, 1995 Dodge Intrepid, in 98 the engine just pooped. It crapped the bed. It just said, screw this, I'm done. So Before that, it was a good car. I actually remember the car, even though I was only 3 years old. I actually remember the car in my head. So it was only 3 years old, and the engine crapped a bit. So we had to get another car. And at that time, we had two cars. We had the Intrepid, and my grandmother, who I bought a Avalon in '97, she gave us her 1986 Toyota Camry. First generation, not the first model year, but still the first generation Camry, which I truly love. I love that car. She gave us her '86 Camry, so we had that, but an '86 Camry in '98, not really something you'll take on road trips. It was the dependable car. It started up every day, but it's not really something my parents were too sure about using as our family car, and it had a couple of dents and all that in it, so we needed something else. So we decided to go for a van. My parents bought this is in '98. My parents bought a 1996 Ford Windstar GL, our first minivan. It was green, and it was the GL, so it was an upscale base edition. Like the base you'll get, it was just nothing. But we had the upscale base edition, which will, I want to say, offer tinted windows, rear AC and heat, a rear backseat radio controls, and that's about it, I want to say. So it was a 2-year-old car. Bought it, and that was our family car. And the Camry was just a beater. It was, my dad drove the Camry to work, and my mom, of course, had us, so she drove the Windstar. That was her van. So we drove those cars, took it, drove the Windstar on a few road trips, had fun in it. Lots of memories in that van. A lot of memories. My eldest sister, the first time that she ever drove a car was that van, and she almost crashed into the garage, but she was only like 14 at the time, so I'll never forget the day she almost crashed into the garage. That was pretty funny. Anyway, so we had that car. In 2001 was the year we finally stepped up. My parents bought a 1999, yes, another used car, 1999 Toyota Sienna XLE, which is on my channel. You all have seen it. Bought it in 2001 as a graduate school gift. My mother had finished graduate school, getting her master's, and it was a present from my dad to her. Even though she knew we were getting it, but still, that was the occasion for us getting that van. And we went through a process. We actually weren't not going to end up with that 1999. We were going to end up with a 2001 brand new, but ended up with the 1999 because I'm going to tell you the story. We went in the first day and test drove a 2001 Sienna, but it was a LE. It had everything except leather seats and a sunroof. It had the power door, CD player, all that stuff. We were actually going to buy that van. But he came back in a couple of days later after we test drove that one, and somebody had beat us to the punch and bought it. So we said, okay, we'll look again. We went out to the lot and looked at a 2001 brand new Sienna, but this was a CE. This was the dead base edition. Like, you couldn't get any less than this. And my parents said, no, we don't want to go from, we want to upgrade a little bit. So we looked at a 2001 XLE with the VCR in the back. This one actually had the entertainment system, which is a VCR, VHS at the time. It was only 2001. But my parents, we couldn't afford that. That VHS system upped the price a lot, since that was a rare option on cars back then. So it upped the price. So my parents were like, nah, we can't afford that. So then after we were like so tired of just looking at vans, because wanted the Sienna, we wanted that van, but it's like every time we saw one, it was just, the first one we looked at got sold. The second one was had barely any features, and we didn't want to get that. The third one cost too much. So that same day, a 1999 Sienna XLE came in off of a trade. And one of the other salesmen came and told us, okay, we just got this 99 Sienna. As you know, it's not brand new, but has 30,000 miles, and it's in like new condition. And so we said, okay, my parents said, okay, we'll go look at that. So we walked out. That's the first time we laid eyes on what will be our family van. Black 99 Sienna XLE, 30,000 miles, off of a trade. So we test drove it, and my mom fell in love with it. And that day, my parents signed the papers, and that van was ours. And boy, when I tell you, did my sisters think my sisters and I thought we were just doing it big, because we had came from a windstar, GL, the base edition windstar, to the top of the line Sienna. We had the leather seats, CD player, sunroof, and the coolest feature we thought was a power door, which is like nothing on vans now, but you know, power door, that was something big back then. And let me check the time on this video. Okay. This may be a two-part video. I mean, 11 minutes. So we bought the van, and man, we were doing it big, or at least thought that. So we drove that van, took it on plenty of road trips for the 8 years that we had. I went 8, 9 years, around that. So drove that, and right when we got the Sienna, our Camry, the 86 Camry, the timing belt broke. And so my parents didn't really feel like getting it fixed, so we sold it to a mechanic. And at that time also, we had my uncle's 1986, same year, Volkswagen Jetta, which we didn't have for long, but we drove it for a little bit. Then we gave it to my grandfather, who needed a work car, because he had just bought a Cadillac, and he didn't, you know, he works with cranes, so he didn't want to drive a Cadillac to a job like that. So we gave him that car, which is an 86 Jetta, which is how we have a Volkswagen now, because it was a good, pretty good car. MK2, sort of my favorite generation. Moving on, we had those in windstar and in Sienna. In about 2005, the windstar started giving us issues. I want to say the cylinders were going out, like one or two cylinders went out. So car wouldn't pass the emissions test, so we had to take it off the road. Got it fixed, put back on the road for about another year, and then something else happened to it, so we had to take it off the road again. Not knowing that time when we took it off the road, that would be our last time ever driving that van. So that van's, the windstar sat in our garage for about a year and a half, just sitting there, collecting dust, before 2007, when we were coming home from getting a window on the Sienna fixed, the window. My mom was in a rush one day, bagged in the garage, broke the window on the van because she hit a shelf that we had in there. So we were coming home from that, got the window replaced and everything on the Sienna. And we saw an ad that said, we'll buy you a junk car for $150. Now at that time, we knew that van was worth more than $150, but we weren't really going to get it fixed, and it was just sitting in. If push came to shove, we were just going to give it away. If somebody needed, we were going to give it away to them. So we just said, okay, why not get this $150? So we sold it to a junkyard. So either that van was parted out or just straight up scrapped. Rest in peace, our 96 windstar. I love that van. I actually still have the key to it upstairs in my room. Yeah, I still have the key for some reason. So the Sienna was our only car at the time. Drove it. Never gave us an issue. And I think this would be a two-part video. So I will end this video right here and stay tuned for the next part.